Royal Road is strictly an exploration company, and so what we mean by that is, we don't intend to be building mines. We might be a participating investor, shareholder, or royalty holder at that particular stage. But we sort of, and I guess most of your audience will be aware, around about 15 odd years ago, maybe a little bit longer, mining industries and exploration companies, for various reasons, not least of which was sort of occupational health and safety, split. And so, exploration companies took off and raised their own capital, established their own exploration enterprises, etc. And of course, many of us have major companies as participants on the share register. Our largest shareholder is Agnico Eagle. And then I'll get to the end on this, but basically there's about another 20 odd institutions who are quite tightly held. And one of our issues, I guess, is our retail ownership. We're mostly institutionally held, and I would guess institutions and insiders are around about 70 odd percent. But in any case, to the project. So we're busy drilling right now at Caribe in northeastern Nicaragua, permitting and getting set up to drill a project that we drilled last year, called Guinta Niverengo in Colombia, and we've just wrapped up an initial program at a sort of big, exciting porphyry system in western Nicaragua that I'll come to. A lot of that innovative mine formalization social programs relates particularly to Colombia for obvious reasons, and I can certainly get to that towards the end of the presentation. We're talking about some land holdings there. Something that the Nicaraguans the Nicaraguan operators on the call will certainly be aware of, I'm sure, is that Rio Tinto, by way of their Calibre joint venture, earlier last year staked up a big patch of northwestern Nicaragua in application. And as Alistair was sort of pointing out on his questions there, but none of those have yet been converted to titles. So Nicaragua, as Paul said, and just to reiterate and amplify his point, really has become something of a, if I could compare it, I suppose, something of a Peru back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's a very, very, very busy exploration environment right now. One other point I like to make when I do talk about this Nicaragua and its current stage in respect to the exploration cycle is that I suppose it's tempting to think that it's easier because perhaps there isn't enough sort of regulation, diligent regulation applied to the process, but that's not true. There's a fairly rigorous EIA process before you can draw a hole. The difference with Nicaragua and many other countries is the government's there to help you, and is often there at that EIA and community consultation process with you. So, to me, in any case, that's the big difference. And just to and I'll come to Colombia at the end of question time if you like, but just to address a point of Paul's on left-wing governments. Well, I think we all agree that Nicaragua is a great place to invest, and of course, it is ostensibly at least a left-wing government. Okay, so where we work, and I'm not, like I said, there's Colombia, but in Nicaragua, we work, everything we do in Nicaragua is part of a 50-50 strategic alliance with a company called Hemco-Mineros, and Mineros is actually a Colombian company. Basically what happened is in 2017, we bought a company called Nicasa, or Casa Gold. Nicasa was the local enterprise. And then threw in our title package that we acquired by way of that process, together with Hemco in a 50-50 exploration joint venture. So there's a couple of properties we have in the west, some that we've got under application also in the northeast, and of course the entire Golden Triangle or mining triangle, whichever term you want to use, up in the northeast there, which is an area that's produced about 9 odd million ounces from a weird combination of deposit styles, sort of ranging from epithermal gold, skarn type systems, and porphyry. It's one of those odd geological anomalies that we're finding pretty difficult to explain, and certainly the literature has fallen well short of being able to publish a reasonable understanding of what's going on geologically in that part of the world. But quite aside from that, its prospectivity is really striking, and we've got some pretty interesting areas in Colombia, particularly in the south, which are problematic from a social aspect, as I'm sure everyone's aware, but highly prospective. But having said that, I would definitely stack that Golden Triangle in Nicaragua up with any of our assets down there in southern Colombia, if that helps to put that in context in any way. Okay, so just quickly on this, we all use these, but if you're an exploration company, this triangle becomes a little bit more crucial than it does if you're on a sort of mine development track. We have to keep this thing full, basically. So we need a good portfolio of early stage right through to advanced projects. As you can see, we're missing something at the moment in our company, and it's identified as a point of urgency in sort of the resources PEA section. We would have been drilling out resources at a project called Luna Roja up in northeastern Nicaragua, but we just sold it. And so I won't harp on too much about this, but there's sort of a cycle there of funneling money back into exploration. And I'm not going to dwell on this because we've just sold it, as I said. It's a skarn up in northeastern Nicaragua. We sold it to our partners, so we sold our 50% for $22.5 million US and a royalty, and that closes next week. In terms of payments, the definitive agreement's all done. So, interesting project, and certainly there's more of these things out there up in the northeast and presumably elsewhere throughout Nicaragua. The exploration potential is really striking. We sort of turned up on this in 2018. And then we sold it last year, so it's 2 years on it, drilling it heavily and defining what it was. So I'm going to move on to what we're drilling now, which has really got us excited, and it's completely different, by the way. That much we know. There's not much we know about it, but we do know it's completely different to the Luna Roja skarn, although just 16 kilometers south of it. It is a breccia body. It's the jury's out still, and we're arguing internally about, as geologists do, about just what sort of breccia it is. But in any case, it's stacking up quite nicely. It's going to be completely different. It's a from surface, bearing in mind that surface is covered by about 3 meters of saprolite and soil. Up to 30 meters of soil, so it's not exposed, and that's part of the problem in terms of our getting to understand it. But in any case, it'll be a near-surface sort of bulk tonnage style thing, and obviously we're hoping for something well in excess of 1 million ounces, given that our shareholders and what they need and our interest in the JV. So we're drilling this at the moment. It slowed down a little bit. Sort of late last year, the rig wasn't being able to get us. We had a small rig; it wasn't being able to get through some of the clay zones. We've now got a bigger rig on site it's just finished 3 holes. You can see over there in the cross section that we're going well down into the sort of the guts of the system. Well, we found some pretty interesting stuff. So we're still waiting on assays on those holes, obviously, and they should be out in the next week or so. This isn't really it, but what you can see here is really what's hosting the gold mineralization, and this is not an oxide versus sulfide comparison. The slide on the left hand, the shot on the left hand side there is actually down in the sulfide zone. It's primary hematite, if you like. That carries gold. This other thing on the right hand side is quite copper rich. So as we get one particular form of breccia, which is this more hydrothermal breccia, which is plumbing the sort of depths of the system as opposed to replacing volcanic breccias, we start to get more copper. And so we have got some pretty decent visual intersections of copper that we've yet to get assay results from those recent drill holes. We're still a long way from understanding this, so I'm really not going to pretend that we do. We will be getting a RAB rig in about a month or two's time, and we're hoping that that's going to help significantly, at least in terms of revealing that that surface, that surface information. Okay, let's see if this works. I'm just going to very quickly give you a quick and dirty sort of virtual trip of, and we're still working on this. This will go out to shareholders with a sort of goggle machine that they can use with their phones, and of course it'll go onto our website. This is the nearby town of Rosita. It's a mining town. Back in the 1920s, there was an operating skarn gold, copper, silver mine there that produced quite a bit of copper, more than anything else. To get to our project, we leave Rosita there, that town. We jump in a boat on the Rio Bambana, and this is a community, an indigenous community called the community of Wasaking that we've been working with in respect of all sorts of things, doing the normal stuff, repairing schools, village halls, etc. But also trying to assist them with something a little bit more sustainable, and particularly cocoa plantations, and assisting them with sort of alternative crops, getting to marketing ideas, etc. So we jump into a canoe and we head down the river for about 8 or so kilometers. And you can see, well, you'll get a hint here now of just how hurricane ravaged this was. So this area had to suffer through 2 hurricanes last year, Iota and Eta, and basically it went straight over the top of them. We've been back on that river. We've been establishing sort of feeding platforms for some of the animals, sort of tree-borne animals that lost a lot of habitat. And you can see just around the drill platform here, pretty much, this has all been stripped by those hurricane winds. There's not much more to show you here, I don't think. When this tour is finished, it'll take you through a core shed as well. So you'll be able to physically sort of walk through the core either on your computer or with some VR goggles. So I'll get out of that and hopefully return to this. Right, assuming my screen's back on there. So I'm going to leave Caribe there, and I'm just going to run through some of our projects. We've got quite a lot here that we're sort of moving through to drill stage, or have indeed sort of done some initial scout drilling on. So I'm just going to walk you through a few of them quite quickly, actually. This is a project called Oro Fino. It's a very large area. It's at least 4 square kilometers of up in the northeastern Golden Triangle again, of shallow dipping volcanics with sort of manto-style mineralization. So manto-style is mineralization that follows the layering, and in this case, it follows these fragmental sort of tufaceous or pyroclastic volcanic units. And as you can see, the grades are stunning. And so we've really just got started on this, mapping it and trying to pull together some sort of concept, which is sketched there conceptually for you on this slide. And that little photograph at the top shows you quite nicely the shallow dipping sort of volcanic unit with veins in it, and presumably with some replacement mineralization as well. Now there's a video here that I should be able to show you and presumably talk over if that music's not too loud. And so we're starting here just in that breccia, as you can see, and there's veining running down parallel to that bedding horizon. And that runs obviously some spectacular grades. Local miners have been digging away from that. And that's one area. And then we sort of, we trek our way northwards from there through nothing but alteration, carrying spotty gold grades to this area, which is really a colluvial occurrence. So it's actually built on some sort of an intrusion, we think. And of course, that's going to be the focus of sort of immediate follow-up exploration work. I'm now just going to move quickly to Los Andes, and we just drilled this sort of late last year. This is probably the most conceptual of our projects. It's an extensive ring fracture of which is basically, as it says on the tin, so it's a ring of advanced argillic alteration with indications of copper and porphyry at depth. Now, we drilled some holes just recently and hit sort of 0.1% copper, and that's about the highest that we've ever got in this project. But that's good enough, given you're getting sort of 6 odd grams of gold on surface, to encourage us to drill some deeper holes. Now, for those of you who don't know what a lithocap is, it's basically the surface expression of an underlying mineralizing sort of epithermal and/or porphyry-related system. We've been drilling just underneath the lithocap, and we've been hitting this type of stuff. It's that you can see the copper in it. It's breccia, and our view now is that we need to go further beneath the lithocap into an exposed breccia body, and so we're pretty excited about getting a drill hole into that. And here's just another video that should give you an idea. This one might be a bit louder. Should give you an idea of the scale of this thing. And so this is starting from the south, and we're going to swing around eastwards and finish up north. We've been drilling underneath this. This is all lithocap holes from the advanced archaeological operation. We've been drilling up here. Our next hole's going down in this valley here where we have exposed breccia. That'll be sort of the lowest structurally in the system. And everything you're seeing going around here right now is advanced or argillic alteration over a 7-kilometer strike length. So as you can see, if we hit on this thing, then it's certainly got the volume potential that we need. Now, here's another one that we drilled back in 2018 and did some saw cut sampling on. We've gone back to this because of what's happened to the copper price, and also because we'd heard that local miners had unroofed a gold rich zone, and so we went out to check that just recently, and they certainly have. What they've unroofed is an area dominated by porphyritic rock carrying quartz, tourmaline, and gold veins. So this has got us all excited about this project sort of once again, and it's sort of shaken the model up a little bit. Most of the copper sits in a magmatic breccia that you can see on the photo. There's top 2 photos on the right-hand side. The bottom right there is the porphyry, which is a younger rock intruding those things. So for the geologists who are listening, so our initial interpretation was that the mineralization was related to that magmatic breccia. What might be happening actually now is that it's related to, or we've got 2 events, it's related to the younger porphyry that's in place and just simply using that more porous, older magmatic breccia. So we're working on that at the moment. Here's another, and the last, in case you're getting sick of these things, quick video of Piedra Imán where you can see the relationship between those 2 systems. It's coming into view now. That's the magmatic breccia, which is rich in copper. So we have a good 20 meter plus 1% saw cut channels. You can see someone's dug away at a tunnel there. Back in the 70s, Miranda actually put a tunnel underneath that and got some pretty good intersections of copper, which we've been following up the drilling. Now, as this rolls down, you'll start to see this new area. There it is there, where these guys have been digging out gold and identified the new porphyry. I think you can see this video quite nicely shows that sits underneath and on the side of that copper mineralized zone. So, as I said, this has sparked some sort of new interest. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up with some of the stuff that we do. I like to think we're well known for these type of things. It's certainly a significant component of our company. At any one point in time, there seems to be more people working on the environmental and social side of things in both Nicaragua and Colombia than there are beating on rocks. So we're doing all of those good things that you can see at the bottom there. Including and there's those other crops that I mentioned that we were working with in Wasa King. Just something to draw your attention to that GIF rolling over on the left hand side there, that net. That Rio Bambanada you would have seen in that you recall from the video I showed you of Caribe, is the local rubbish dump. Really, it's horrific. So one of the things we're doing is working on optimizing sort of plastic catching nets, ensuring that we're not catching any of the fish in that river, and that's what those guys are doing there. There's one of our feeding boxes next to that where that's a kuyu. It's actually normally a nocturnal animal. Its habitat has been completely destroyed by those hurricanes. And so, whilst that habitat recovers, he's living off our papaya up in that feeding box. I'll just flick past it. This is something else we do on the social side, but it's much more sustainable in my view. It's much more economically focused. So it's the Accelerator, and basically what we do is try to identify or help the communities identify projects that are really commercial. We seed them and we spin them out, and so. There's a couple of things that we're working on at the moment. The one that's most advanced is Quasi-SEA. That's a project working on a bioinsecticide that's safe to animals and humans and bees. And then one that we're all enjoying at the moment is another plant that we're working with as a hops alternative, which is a lot cheaper for beer brewing. And that's about it. So that's sort of the share structure. And our largest shareholders there, so Agnico, as I said, with about 20%. These are the guys who are reporting, at least US Global and McKinsey, sitting there around about 6 or 7% each. There's some reports, there's some research sitting on our website that was done recently by Sprott Capital.
We've got 5 minutes and we have a few audience questions for you, Tim. So how quickly do you expect to deploy the capital proceeds from Luna Roja? Which projects will get the bulk of the proceeds?
I haven't really thought about how quickly we'd be deploying those. The bulk of the proceeds is going to go, obviously, I suppose the answer to that is we're always careful managing treasury, no matter how much is in it. So exploration and exploration investment is, thanks, Raziel. Exploration investment is results driven. Obviously, the bulk of that's going to go to Caribe at this stage. We would like to get another rig on that. The RAB program is going to be extensive, and we're buying that RAB rig. We've already bought it, but that's going to be an extensive program of surface rabbing, not just at Caribe, but over some of those other projects such as Oro Fino. Margaritas is a project that I haven't just spoken about here. It's an exposed gold-bearing breccia in Colombia. That's just going through the transition from application to title. And so those of you familiar with the Colombian regulation will know what that means. We can't drill on it until it's a title. And we have the first stage of that process coming up at the end of this month, which is what they call an audiencia pública, so public audience managed by the mining agency. So that we're hoping to spend quite a bit on that, although for the first $1 million or so will be spent by our JV partners, Mineros. But there aren't too many projects like that left in Colombia. Colombia is highly prospective, there's no doubt about it, but not too many in a safe environment with gold sticking out of the surface, so in a breccia body like that. So some of the money will go to that as well.
You've mentioned rig availability a few times. Can you elaborate on that? Is it a problem right now in like sort of the COVID pandemic era, or has it been an ongoing issue for you? We haven't had an issue. Sorry, I didn't mean to say. We really haven't had an issue in Nicaragua with rig availability. There are a lot of rigs there, and Colombia are running 10, or probably no, there must be more. Probably somewhere between 10 and 20 rigs, at least 10, anyways. For Calibre's programs, we've got one of their rigs. There's a couple of their rigs drilling for Hemco. We haven't really had an issue. The issue we had was with delivery of our RAB rig. So we bought a RAB rig out of Canada, and shipping it down from Vancouver's been delayed because of COVID issues. So that's really the only rig availability issue we've had so far. Got it. Okay. I've got a couple more audience questions. Will the breccia core that looked heavy in copper be in the assay release you mentioned in a week or two?
It won't be a week or two. It'll be the next release will include that result, I think, because I think it sort of changes the complexion of the project. From a large bulk grade
sort of gold system, volcanic gold system, to something with some meaningful copper in it. So I reckon that's about, I'm guessing it's about 3 or 4 weeks away.
Okay. And are you doing anything to help the COVID response under your social programs?
Well, we have, so we've done a lot, at least back when the pandemic hit, but in terms of in Colombia and in Nicaragua. So we delivered thousands of sort of health packs to our communities in both countries, and they contained things like, so immediately when it hit, they contained things like face masks, disinfectant, food, etc., etc., etc. They were delivered by the truckload in Colombia, and there's a few sort of media videos and coverage of that event, of those events, and the same in Nicaragua. So then we had to step up again in Nicaragua, particularly after the hurricanes. So we had to clean the potable water wells, provide other supplies straight after the hurricane. So we've been pretty busy with our communities. And Paul's right. The mining industry gets a lot of flack, but we're actually all pretty good at this type of stuff. And it's not that we have to. We do it.
I think that's a good attitude to have. And you were just in country, correct?
Yeah, I just got back. I'm here unhappily self-isolating. I got back on Monday. Yeah.
How is it there?
No, wonderful. Business as usual. And this is probably a contentious comment, but I would agree with what Paul said, and in that I think they managed this pretty well. I mean, they got on with it, put it that way. But then again, in a country like Nicaragua, it's pretty hard, and many South American countries to isolate people, shut down schools and businesses. It's a hand-to-mouth economic environment. So,
yeah, it's been tough on the whole region, I think. So
yeah.
It's nice to hear people like yourself are doing your part. Thanks, Tim. It was a really good update.
My pleasure.
Some exciting projects there. And if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to reach out. I'll get those answered for you. And nice catching up with you, Tim.
And you too, Deborah. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.